Okay, I was trying to figure out what to play, and then right when I was figuring out what to play, it came out that Nee released. You guys know Nee, the Korean Tekken player, one of the best players on the planet, easily top 5, easily. He released his tournament tier list. He talked about it with Kuro, the Japanese guy. Oh, you know, before we continue, while I let you guys digest what you're seeing here, I'll make it a little bigger. I have a bunch of people to thank that subscribed before the stream started. So, let me do that. You guys digest this shit, okay? Digest what you see here. Let's see. So you guys take the opportunity to examine the tier list. How do you guys feel about it? Let me tell you how I feel about it. I told you so. Isn't that what I basically said? So the only thing that I would disagree with on the tier list is that the B tier and the C tier, I think, shouldn't even be separated. To me, the B tier and the C tier are all the same shit. This is such a large group of characters, right? They're all the same thing. Kuma, Pando, Lars, Chloe, and Gigas are, you know, just as tournament viable as the rest. And I think that even Nee would agree, but if you watch the video, they don't even really address the low tier characters because they don't give a shit. They don't matter that much. But there's also, I can upload, let's see if I can squeeze it in. The interesting thing is, here's the, is that the same one? Yeah, that's the same one. That's not it. This one is the Deathmatch tier list, right? This is the Deathmatch tier list. So, what's different, right? First of all, Xiaoyu, Leo, and Devil Jin got moved down. A bunch of characters from tier A got moved down. Bob, Nina, Yoshimitsu, let's see, Heihachi, Kazuya, Paul, Steve, Brian, all these characters, Horang, they all got moved down into the lower tier, right? Why is that? Why did they all get moved down? And why are they, first of all, right, the question is, what is a deathmatch? Why does that even make any sense, right? So, I'll tell you. A deathmatch is two people playing for a very, very long time. And in a deathmatch, basically, the reason it would be different than in a tournament is, in a tournament, if you hit a launcher and you drop that combo, it's a catastrophe. Because the total number of combos it takes you to win a tournament match is way less than, you know, in a deathmatch. So basically, think of it as like a test, right? The test, if it has 1,000 questions, one mistake is not that big of a deal. But if the test has 10 or 15 questions, one mistake is like a catastrophe. 5 mistakes and you're dead, right? So that's why characters that are higher execution, like Mishima's, Devil Jin, you know, all that shit, Horang, Steve-oo, any Brian bullshit you see, all that stuff is going to be worse. Bob, Nina, characters like Yoshimitsu that require more of a, like, oh, I have an idea of what this guy's tendencies are, you know, so I can get around his shit. Those types of characters are not going to be very good in tournament because they require more time to apply their strengths. But characters like these, let me move this up. Characters here, like, let's look at the ones that moved up. Sorry to break it to you, Kane, but Lily is up, right? Eliza, Lily, Shaheen, Elisa. These characters, Oscar is a big one, right? A tier, right? And let's think about this really before we focus on anything other than look at the top tier here. Kazumi, Dragunov, Jack. There are only 3 characters in this S tier, which out of all these characters tells me that that is a very elite category. Very high up. So to me, A tier is like the best tier there is if you're not in this mega elite top tier. A tier is very good, right? Because if you look at the rest, B and C tier, basically you can clump those together, right? So this is like every character in the game is in the B, C tier, right? So if you're in the A tier, you're looking fucking good, right? And if you're in the S tier, you are a god, right? So, if you look at it that way, exactly as I suspected, characters that, first of all, have a lot of crush moves, right? So all-ins, right? Moves like hop kicks, moves like low crush, high crush, can, Matterhorn, those types of characters start to go up. High damage output, right? What do we need? High damage output and lots of crush moves like evasive, hard read moves. Boom, we're creating an A tier here, right? Now, the thing that's the kicker is rule-breaking characters are also in this tier list. Rule breakers. Going under mids, Lily, Eddie. Going under mids, going over mids. We got Shaheen. These are like Xiao Yu, cheater characters, right? The cheaters are in this list. Feng, Leo, these are the cheap cheater characters. But why is it that these characters are not S, right? What keeps these characters out of S? To me, it must be that, look at these 3 top tier characters. What do they have in common? They have one thing in common. They are mega spammy. Spam the shit out of like 4 moves and you win the tournament. Kazumi, Dragunov, and Jack. Hella spammy. You don't have to think too hard to choose what your tool of choice is for each situation, because you have such good moves that cover so many things, right? So you don't have to think so hard. These other characters like Lily, like Steve, oh man, Jin, Feng, Xiao Yu, Eddie, all these characters, they have a lot of moves and they have to use a lot of moves to make everything come together, right? You can't just make things happen with 3 moves with Lily. You can't make things happen with 5 moves with Eddie. It just is not going to work that way with those characters. So for that reason, they are not elite level, right? That's at least from what I can tell, right? I watched the video too. Did I finish saying everything I wanted to say?
Thank you.
That's crazy, right? It's weird to me that I agree with Nee, because he and I obviously do not share very many similarities in terms of playstyle or anything, right? But it's pretty clear that we agree on philosophy of what works in tournament. Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention when it comes to this tier list stuff is that in the tournament tier list, higher execution characters are moved down, and in the video, Nee explains that this tournament tier list is specifically a tier list for PS4, and that matters a lot because of the lag. So, characters like Brian, characters like Mishima's that really require precision, Nina, Kazuya, right? That require precision, they're going to be lower on a PS4 tournament tier list because of the input delay. It's a real world thing that you have to factor into your tier list. And this is what he has done for his tier list, which I think is dope.
Fox 30 News.
What were we talking about? Oh yeah, this tier list. Man, so interesting, right? Eddie. Oh man, it's crazy that he put Eddie there. But it makes sense, right? Because it follows, it's not that it makes sense, it's that it adds up, right? The way he's thinking is the way I'm thinking, which is the 2 most valuable things in tournament are simplicity and crazy rule-breaking bullshit like Art of Phoenix, Matterhorn, crush moves, cans, shit that's gonna fuck up your opponent's equilibrium, right? When you're playing, you saw what happened with Weapon X the other day when he lost and he tossed his head, Crones.
Hop kick, no punish.
Link has one of the strongest punishes. Oh, he's getting...
And that's it if he doesn't drop it.
Whoa, camera. Oh, my lord. Yo, what? Dude, he's throwing...
What a...
Dude, he... Okay. Oh my god. He's...
Anyway, so yeah, this is the big tier list. I forgot what I was talking about. Oh yeah, the cheap shit, right? Shit that makes a character good in tournament is the rule breaking shit. All the rule breakers are right there, right? All the rule breaking characters are in the A tier. The only one that's missing is Claudio, right? The only character that really fucking breaks the rules that's not in A tier is Claudio. Every other character in B and C tier either requires a lot of execution or is just lacking in one way or another, right? And that, like I said, I think that B and C tier might as well be compressed. What difference does it make at that point, right? It's all the same shit in the end. Oh yeah, Chloe, that's right. Like I said, okay, so if you guys watch the video where it's on Kuro's channel, and he's discussing this with Nee. Nee gives a little bit of clarity on why this is his tier list, but they never discuss when moving things around from this to this, they never end up discussing the C tier. They don't even bring it up. And I think that's because who gives a fuck, right? But I suspect that had they brought that up, Nee would have, like, compressed them into one. So it would be S, A, and B. There is no C tier, is my guess. That's what I would do. For the most part, I completely agree with this as a tournament tier list. So let's get rid of this. This one on the bottom is the Deathmatch tier list. So let's just quickly take a look at it and then get rid of that shit, because who gives a fuck about death matches, right? So champions are not crowned over 100 games set, right? So this is the Deathmatch tier list. Now, getting rid of that, this is the tournament tier list. Now keep in mind, this is PS4, right? PS4 specifically, because that's what tournaments are held on. So this is real world shit, right? Kazumi, Dragunov, Jack. Very interesting. Steve being up there is also pretty interesting. But I don't know. I wonder what that's all about. Fang Jin. There aren't that many. Like, what are the big, like, what the fuck is that doing there? Horang being in B makes sense, right? Law. I think Law was a little peculiar because of all the panic moves, but then when you think about his utility, his damage output, Law is kind of bunk these days.
I'm not disrespecting Nee's tier list, but do you think Yoshimitsu being B tier in tournament is because you don't really see the best of the best Yoshis like iMusician or Carrier Shojin, etc. Not trying to put down Kane either.
Hey, think of it this way, right? So you are looking at it like, the reason we don't see that many good Yoshis in tournament is because the good Yoshis don't enter, right? But there are two other ways you could look at it. First of all, perhaps, and I suspect this is the case, Nee's tier list is not based on, like, it's not only based on what's actually happened. It's based on his own personal philosophy on what's possible potentially, right? So it's not like we've ever seen tournament champions with, like, Elisa yet, right? I guess we have, right? What's his name? Chanel. So what's an example? Eddie, right? Or Lily, right? We haven't seen tournament champions with these characters, but he puts them up there based on what he thinks they're potentially able to do, right? But the more important thing that I think you should think about is those guys that you are holding at a pedestal as being super great, those super great players are not even tournament players. Maybe they don't even enter in tournaments because they aren't confident, or maybe that's not the type of thing they're into, or whatever. There's so many unknowns there that you can't factor that in. In fact, it's almost needless to say. Because there could always be some player out from the middle of nowhere that doesn't enter. Okay, so when I thought about Yoshimitsu being B tier, in my mind, my instinct was maybe it's because Yoshimitsu is the type of character that requires a little bit more player tendency to really make his shit happen, right? To get that flash off of all those situations, to, you know, like, he's got a long move list, you know, and he doesn't cheat. He's really honest. So I think that's probably why. It makes sense to me. It follows Yoshi being a B tier character follows the trend to me. You know what I mean? It follows the trend. The trend here is obviously the most valuable characters are the spammiest, lowest decision-making characters like Jack, Dragunov, Kazumi, right? Then the next tier is all the crush property characters, right? High damage output and reward, and lots of crush properties, especially rule-breaking crush properties like mid crush, going under mids, cheap shit like that. So that's the trend to me. So if you move down and look at what's in the next tier, B tier and C tier, it adds up, right? The only character that's kind of like, yeah, they're Claudio, right? Claudio's the one that's like, oh, he's kind of like, if this were gonna be homogenous with all that, Claudio's kind of missing. And some might say Akuma. Where's Akuma? But remember, he specifically said that this is a PS4 tournament tier list. Akuma, to be harnessed at his highest potential, needs to be played at a very precise level. Execution is key, right? In order to make Akuma come to life. It's all about execution, right? So, and think about it, if you really think about it, even Punko hasn't really done that well, or as well as he did before, ever since the console tournament started. He was really a killer on the arcade version. You remember that? On the arcade version of the game, I felt like he was really a killer, right? Console version of the game, I don't know. Maybe he's still a killer, but he definitely doesn't seem as dangerous as before. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not, but keep in mind this tier list is for the PS4. So, you know, I mean, that's just something to remember. But I found it to be very intriguing. Most specifically because of the Lily, you know, Oscar being A tier is really interesting. Right? He obviously values crush. Hard reads and crush properties. Plus her damage output is very, very high. So, it's pretty interesting. Jack being S tier. It's funny too. When's the last time we saw that? I guess I'm kind of surprised that Paul is in B. Very interested in this tier list. What is this guy talking about? Will you play anything today? I don't know. I haven't decided yet. I definitely wanted to talk about that tier list because it's so surprising. But at the same time, I'm more surprised that he agrees with me than I am what he said.
What's your tier list for which characters are most for gingerly?
Hey, thanks very much, Stoned AF. That gets asked all the time. But I can't tell you the tier list because the tier list is ever changing. Really, it has more to do with what your favorite characters are than anything.